So actually, I'm going to ask you to start just by saying and spelling your name.
Sure. So my name is Anna Wang. It's ANNAWANG.
Okay. And what's your major and year?
So I'm a senior. I study ILR and film. Film is my minor.
Great. Okay. So, what's the first word that comes to mind when you hear group work?
When I hear group work, I typically think, I guess, collaborative. I'm I actually like group work a lot because I think that you can get a lot of diverse ideas and perspectives coming together to work on a project.
Great. So, on that note, can you say a little bit about the benefits of group work generally and the
Yeah.
group experience?
So I think anytime multiple ideas, like multiple heads, come together, it's sort of beneficial to just get like different ideas and sort of different ways to do things and other perspectives.
Great. Um, Converse of that, some of the challenges or drawbacks or problems with group work?
Yeah. So I think the most important challenge is probably like social loafing. In that a lot of people when they um, hear that they have a group project, if you're like sort of like type A, you get kind of nervous because you know that you're going to do all the work, and if you're type B, you get kind of excited because you know that you don't have to do a lot of the work. And I think that that's sort of like the biggest issue.
Are there ways that you think that you've either developed yourself or that faculty can help with the way they structure group work to
Yeah, I
challenge that?
think like checks and balances along the way, just like feedback from each of the group members, sort of making sure everyone's held accountable, um, that sort of thing.
Great. How typically, in your experience, how are groups formed in your classes?
Like social groups or
No, like for if you have a group project, do you choose your own group members? Do faculty members assign groups? How is that worked out?
I think it's typically it's kind of a mix of both, depending on the class size. If it's like a larger class, sometimes you just choose your own. If it's smaller, it's like sometimes assigned. Um, I don't know.
Do you find differences in the experience? Do you have a preference for one or the other?
I think choosing is probably preferable, just because like you typically know what type of personalities you work best with. Yeah.
Okay, great. Do you think that that your identity, any aspect of your identity, has had an impact on the way some of your group experiences have gone?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm definitely more like type B, so I definitely tend to prefer like certain like I like don't like to meet like too often or too early because that stresses me out. But like when we do meet, like I do like everyone's ideas to come together and for us to all work together and like I think in a less like structured way. So I think my identity as sort of like an ILR student is definitely type of. I'm also a transfer student, so there's sort of like an aspect there as well. I don't know.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about what you said as an ILR student, about how that might have happened?
Yeah, so as ILR students, we study organizational behavior. So we kind of know a little bit more, I guess, like the psychology behind group work. Um, and typically, we sort of, I don't know, we sort of start off on like a level playing field on that sort of subject.
Great. So have you noticed a difference in how groups work in your ILR classes versus classes you might take outside of the ILR school?
Sometimes, yeah. And I think, especially like with transfers, like I feel like when I first transferred in, everyone's like really trying to prove themselves and trying to like make sure they do their best work. So I think that there's a little difference in that.
Okay, great. Um, have you ever had serious conflict in a group work project, or if not serious, have you had to work out?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely been some like clash of personalities in the past. Um, just different like work ethics, I guess, or like ways of working, but nothing that hasn't been resolved.
And do you think your strategy in those instances is to try to like address and solve the problem, or just work around it?
So yeah, I think I typically like to work around it. I'm not a very confrontational person, but just like having kind of like a easy conversation about sort of like what needs to get done and like who needs to do what is
Good. Have you been in groups where the roles are sort of specified, or are your group projects generally, here's a project, figure out how to do it?
I would say it's generally here's a project, and you specify the roles. Typically, like certain people will take the lead, and that's fine with me. I'm like fine taking like a back seat, and I'm also comfortable leading if need be. But usually it's like you figure it out.
Okay, great. How do professors typically judge who's doing the work, or how are you typically just graded on the final project, or do you get grades for your specific role?
I think
how does that all work?
Usually from what I've seen in my classes, especially ILR classes, you get judged for the final project and the personal evaluation is typically based on student feedback. So like students will grade each other kind of and like let the professor know what's happening.
Do you think that works? Is there a way you think it works best?
I think that works pretty well. Yeah, usually students don't like gang up on each other or anything like that. We're pretty nice to each other.
Okay. And final project or the process itself, which do you think is more valuable or important?
I think the process. I think you can learn a lot from working with other people. You know, it's a collaborative world out there, so you gotta figure things out.
Nice. I will definitely use that at the very beginning. So is there anything that I haven't actually specifically asked about that you want to share about, that you'd like faculty to know about group projects in their classes?
Not really, I don't think.
Okay. Any stories or anecdotes or things like that we didn't talk about?
I don't really think so.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Did you want to ask about experience?
Yeah, so I guess it's a way of asking. So have you had a particularly good experience in a group project, or conversely a particularly bad one?
I don't know. I think it's easier to think about like bad experiences. I would say there's one in my like collective bargaining class. We had like a bargaining simulation where we split up into like management and unions, and our side was like management, and I was with one of my friends who's like very type A, like has to get everything done, has to like meet for like 10 hours a day to do something, and that like didn't really work for me. And conversely, the other partner was like completely not there for the process, and sort of that showed in our final project when we were executing the like the bargaining simulation, just because we had like a outright fight in between. I mean, like I was not really involved in it, but it was my like two partners, and I would say that definitely detracted from the situation. But other than that, I don't know. If you can keep your personality in check and if you can keep your emotions like aside from the work that needs to get done, I think that that's the best thing to do.
Good. Okay, great.